Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you, my students? I hope that you're happy and healthy, and I hope that you are ready for today's lesson, which will be the Unit 2 writing. But before we do that, let's revise what we previously took in our previous lesson. The characteristics of the investigator, of the good detective. We took crimes that the detective investigates. We said kidnapping, murder, burglary, etc. And the characteristics needs to solve a crime. We said patient, well-educated, smart, and aware of his surroundings. Of course, you can add more and more to these as you like. Do I have these characteristics? Of course, this is up to you, and be honest with yourself when you're answering this part. So this is today's objectives: to write about a detective character they know, analyze a crime story to its main elements, to analyze a story, answer the main questions about a crime story, then use time markers to follow the order of the events. So this is today's lesson. Let's begin here. What do you think the person is? Who do you think the person is? You can see the picture here. Can you tell me what do you see in this picture? Yeah, it's very easy. It's someone charging his phone, and you can see here the socket here. He plugged the charger into the socket, and he is charging his phone. Here are a few questions. Who do you think the person is? What is he doing in the picture? Where do you think he is, and why? So who do you think the person is? It could be anyone. Is he the owner of the place or not? We don't know. What's he doing in the picture? As we said before, he's charging his phone, as you can see. Where do you think he is and why? From the picture, we can't tell really. Maybe he's at someone's house, his own house. Maybe he's in a company, so we don't know. And why, we will see later. So this is today's lesson. This is the title. Charging your cell phone can get you in trouble. Charging your cell phone can get you in trouble, can put you in many troubles. So the first here, A, read the title of the article and decide who it is addressed to. Who it is addressed to, give reasons for your answer. Charging your cell phone can get you in trouble. Who it is addressed to. What's the meaning of addressed to? What's the meaning of addressed to? It means who was it meant to be said for? Who are we talking to? So charging your cell phone can get you in trouble. Who is you here? So who it is addressed for? Is it us? Does charging your cell phone gets you in trouble? So it's obvious that it's not meant for us. It's meant for the criminal in the story, as we will see later. Give you the reasons for your answer. The reason is that when we charge our cell phones, we don't get into trouble. So this is some questions before we read the article. The first one, read the article and answer the questions. Why did the burglar leave the house in a hurry? What did the police find? How did they discover the identity of the burglar? And so we will take them one by one. The first one, as I said before, read the article and answer the questions. The first one, why did the burglar leave the house in a hurry? So now we know there's a burglar who left the house in a hurry. What did the police find? So the police found something. How did they discover the identity of the burglar? So now we know that the police discovered the identity, who the burglar is. So we will try and predict what the article is about. Can you predict from these questions, from the title here? Can you predict what's the article about? Yes, very good. It's very obvious. It's talking about a burglar who was trying to steal things from someone's house, and the police came, and later they caught him. They discovered who the burglar is. Was the burglar arrested? How do you know? What makes you think that? Was he arrested? Yes, of course. How do you know? We know from the last question that the police discovered the identity of the burglar. What makes you think that? As I said before, that they discovered his identity. So you can know many things about the article just reading the questions before the article and also from the title. So this is the article here. Let's listen to it and then we will try to answer the questions. Let's listen.
A burglar was arrested after leaving his cell phone at the house that he broke into. The man was going through the rooms, looking for valuables, when he heard someone unlock the door and enter the house. So, he jumped out of a window and fled to avoid getting caught. The police searched the house later, looking for prints and other clues to help them identify the man. All of a sudden, one of the owners pointed to a cell phone plugged into one of the sockets, charging, and said that he had never seen it before and did not know who it belonged to. The police checked with the rest of the family and confirmed that it did not belong to any of them. One of the police officers had an idea. He called a contact listed in the phone memory, and told the person that the owner of the phone had been in an accident, so the police were trying to get in touch with friends and family. The man was identified. He was later arrested and charged with a total of 12 burglaries.
So, as the story tells here, let's summarize the story. There was a burglar who entered the house or broke into a house. Once he was looking here and there, he heard some noise. Then he jumped out of the window quickly, forgetting his phone charging. Later, the police came and the family with the police saw the charging phone. So the police asked the family, does this phone belong to anyone? They said no. So now they knew that the phone was the burglar's. So one of the police officers had an idea to call one of the contacts and tell him that the owner of this phone, the burglar, had an accident, and they staged the whole thing up, and that led to identifying the burglar and later arresting him. So this is the summary of this, or let's say the short version of this story. So let's answer the questions here. Why did the burglar leave the house in a hurry? Why did he left the house in a hurry, quickly? Why was he running? Yes, because he heard someone enter the house and he didn't want to get arrested. Because while he was searching for things in the house, he heard someone coming into the house. Of course, they were the owners of the house. That's why he jumped out of the window quickly, because he wants to avoid getting arrested or caught, which of course happened to him later in the story. What did the police find? What did the police find? They found something. What was it? Excellent. They found a cell phone that didn't belong to anyone in the family, plugged into a socket. They found the phone plugged in the. So you know now that the burglar was taking his time before the family arrived. He plugged his charger in and wanted to charge his phone, but once he heard some noises, he jumped out of the window. So again, the answer: they found a cell phone that did not belong to anyone in the family, plugged into a socket. How did they discover the identity of the burglar? How did they discover the identity? What was the plan of discovering the identity of the burglar? Of course, it was a smart plan. Yes, very good. One of the police officers called the contact listed in the phone memory, and man was identified. Of course, if you want the long version, one of the police officers had an idea to call someone from the contact and tell him that the owner of the phone had an accident, so they can get the information about him. So again, one of the police officers called the contact listed in the phone memory, and later the man was identified and of course arrested. So read the article again and answer the questions. How does it begin? How does it begin? Focus on these questions. We will be listening to the article again and reading it together, and focus on these questions. How does it begin? The second one, Are all the events presented in the order they happened chronologically? Why or why not? Are all the events presented in the article chronologically as the time they happened, in order of the time they happened? Yes or no? Why or why not? So let's listen again and try to find out the answer to these questions. Let's listen.
A burglar was arrested after leaving his cell phone at the house that he broke into. The man was going through the rooms, looking for valuables, when he heard someone unlock the door and enter the house. So, he jumped out of a window and fled to avoid getting caught. The police searched the house later, looking for prints and other clues to help them identify the man. All of a sudden, one of the owners pointed to a cell phone plugged into one of the sockets, charging, and said that he had never seen it before and did not know who it belonged to. The police checked with the rest of the family and confirmed that it did not belong to any of them. One of the police officers had an idea. He called a contact listed in the phone memory, and told the person that the owner of the phone had been in an accident, so the police were trying to get in touch with friends and family. The man was identified. He was later arrested and charged with a total of 12 burglaries.
So he was identified and charged with 12 burglaries. So this is not his first one. This is not his first one. He was charged with 12 burglaries. So back to the questions here. How does it begin? The article itself. How does it begin? Yes, it's a very easy question. It begins with this. A burglar was arrested after leaving his cell phone at the house that he broke into. It begins with this. A burglar was arrested after leaving his cell phone at the house that he broke into. Was this the first event of the story? Was this the first event chronologically? Yes, of course not, because the burglar being arrested was the last event, not the first event. But sometimes you begin with the last event in the beginning of your story just to get attention of the listener or the reader. Are all the events presented in the order they happened? In other words, chronologically, why or why not? So this is a very obvious answer here. It begins with the final event, as I said before. It begins with the final event, and the reason that led to it, to raise reader interest and expectations. As I said before, it begins with the final event, and the reason that led to it. And how did it lead to him being arrested? Why? To raise the reader's interest, attention, and expectation, to take the reader's mind, to make you want to know what happened. So find out which paragraph or paragraphs focus on the police investigation, the burglary, or the arrest. So the first one, the police investigation. What paragraph focuses on this? On the police investigation. You can know from some of the vocabulary in this paragraph. Can you tell? You can read it in your book now. You can check it. But tell me which paragraph focuses on the police investigation. Yes, the second paragraph, paragraph 2, because of these words, police searching is part of the investigation. Prints, clues, identify the man. Identify the man. So some of these words will help you or can help you figure out the answer. Again, it was paragraph 2 because of these words, the police and the word searched, prints, clues, identify the man. What about the burglary? The burglary itself. What paragraph talks about the burglary? Very good. It's the first paragraph. Arrested, broke into, looking for valuables. Because the man was arrested, he broke into the house. This is the beginning of the burglary. Looking for valuables. This is during the burglary itself. He was looking for valuables while his phone, of course, was charging. The arrest. What about the arrest itself? What paragraph talks about the arrest? Yes, this is very obvious. This is the third paragraph because there are police officers. The idea of how the burglar was arrested, get in touch, identified, arrested, and charged with 12 burglaries. So whenever comes a question like this, tell me the paragraph that talks about this point. Try to look for words that talks about the same point. And if you do that, most likely you will get the answer. How many past forms can you find? If you read the article, how many past forms can you find? Of course, you will find many past forms. It's very easy here, like was arrested, broke into, was going through, heard, jumped, fled, searched, pointed, had, never seen, etc. All the past forms in the text. So the text is filled with past forms. You can find them easily. Again, arrested, was arrested, broke into, was going through, heard, jumped, fled, searched, pointed, had never seen, and etc. Are there any passive forms? Why or why not? Are there any passive forms? If you remember, we took the passive previously. Are there any passive forms? Why or why not? Okay, let's see the answer now. There are a few passive forms. For example, a burglar was arrested. This is the first sentence. A burglar was arrested in paragraph 1. And the man was identified. Also here the passive form. Was arrested or was charged. All of these are passive forms. The passive forms are used to focus on the burglar and the burglary and not the person or people who acted. If you remember, the passive form always focuses on the action. The passive form always focuses on the action rather than the person who did the action, or as we named him, the doer of the action. Again, the passive forms are used to focus on the burglar and the burglary and not the person or people who acted. In this case, the police, because it's understood that the police investigated the case and caught the burglar. So we know who acted, who caught the burglar. Of course, it's the police because it's very obvious from the story. It's very understood that the people who catches burglars are the police. Again, in this case, the police is the people who acted because it's understood that the police investigated the case and caught the burglar. So sometimes in the passive forms, the doer or the person who acted is very obvious. So let's jump to this other exercise in your book, which you will answer. Write a story for a newspaper or a web article describing a crime. Choose a real or imagined crime. You can choose a real or an imaginary crime. The crime should be a foolish, non-violent one. Of course, we took many foolish crimes. We read about them. Non-violent. Before you write, answer the 5 W's with about this crime. Of course, the 5 W's is who, what, where, when, and why. Use the Pentagon chart here to help you and think and make notes around it. So this is the chart that will help you, and try to find 5 W's here. This is the who, where, why, what, and when. Again, answer the 5 W's about the crime. So when you think about the crime, you have to think who did the crime, what, where did the crime take place, when, and why. Once you answer these questions, you can now come up with a story, whether it's fictional or real. So you have to answer it by yourself. Then decide the headline for your article. Use your notes to write the first draft of the article. Of course, any article you write, you have to first write a draft. So you can make mistakes in it, then you correct them. So again, decide a headline for your article. Use your notes to write the first draft of the article. Exchange and edit your drafts. you and your friends. You can exchange your drafts to correct each other, maybe, and get some ideas from each other. Then rewrite, check, and submit or post. Once you see your mistakes in the draft, rewrite the whole article correctly, then check for everything before you post it, and then submit it or post it. Come to the writing corner here. When you write an article or a story for a newspaper or a magazine, here are some pointers for you. The first one, open with an account of an event that happened recently. If a reader is attracted by the first few lines, they are most likely to read the whole story. Just like the article we just read, that a burglar was arrested. He immediately caught your attention. So begin with a line that takes the reader's attention. Again, open with an account of an event that happened recently. If a reader is attracted by the first few lines, they are most likely to finish the whole story. The second one, notice that articles which provide the account of an event do not usually present things in natural order or chronologically. As we said in our article before, it wasn't ordered chronologically. Use a variety of verb tenses to jump back and forth in past time. What happened? What had happened? What was going to happen, but probably didn't? What has happened? So change the tenses so the reader doesn't get bored. Again, use a variety of verb tenses to jump back and forth in the past time. Next point is to use time markers to help your reader follow the order of events in the narrative. Use time markers to make the reader following your order. For example, here, before, later that day, soon after, when, while, and so on. So these are time markers to tell the reader when the thing exactly happened. Before, later that day, soon after, when, while, and so on. The last one, bear in mind that such articles are usually quite dense. For example, they contain a lot of information in little space. They are quite dense because they contain a lot of information in little space. And with that, we reach the end of lesson. Thank you very much. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم.